Today was not supposed to be a rope types video. Today was supposed to be a knot tying video, an introduction to knot tying techniques, knot tying principles. However, when I was selecting what rope I wanted to use in front of the camera so that you could see what I was doing and make it easy for everybody, I had a lot of decisions to make, and when I was looking at the materials and the construction, I realized that this might be something that's valuable to somebody out there. So let's break it down. Materials could be either natural or man-made. That pretty much encompasses everything. Our natural materials are hemp or cotton or any natural fiber material that smolders when lit on fire. Our man-made materials will do the opposite. They will melt, they'll congeal and turn into like a liquid plastic. They smell worse, and you have this melting polypropylene or nylon material will be your man-mades. And there can be a mixture of those too. Commonly you'll see cotton blends or a man-made sheathing with a natural inner core. We'll talk more about that later. Our construction was second. Am I going to be dealing with a braided or a twist or a kern mantle type rope? I've got examples of that here. Here's our twist rope. This is usually a natural rope because it's easier to incorporate longer and longer natural fibers over time. When you're braiding or doing other constructions, it can be difficult to continuously incorporate new material as you're required to do with natural ropes. So here's our twist portion. It's 3-strand twist. You can untwist it and see them here. These are made up of hundreds of tiny cotton fibers that have been spun out and made into a single continuous piece. I like these because they have a little bit of shock loading tendency. They tend to lose their diameter and gain a little bit of length and just allow you to shock load it without snapping any of the materials inside. A solid type of rope system to use, but there are pros and cons to each one. Our second one here, braid. The braided single piece cord I find to be usually used in naval purposes, some in rope climbing, but a lot of these have transitioned over to mantle, kern mantle. Kern mantle has a braided outer sheathing and then multiple inner cores. And if you've ever messed with paracord or 550 cord, that's exactly what I'm talking about here. Now, real paracord, like I have here, is cord that has been produced by individual manufacturers to be used for the purposes of parachutes. This is rated for 550 pounds, thus the 550 shorthand for paracord. And you can, if you have multiple failures of this or if you have any issues with this, you can identify the manufacturer and the lot number based on this identifying line inside of the sheathing here. If this line doesn't exist and you don't have 7 main inner core lines here, you're not dealing with real 550 cord, and that's okay. I am not a cordage snob. This here is locally bought at Tractor Supply Company. It doesn't have the indicating quality assurance, quality control, or quality insurance line. These lines are a little bit lighter weight, not as tight. There's still 7 of them, so that's nice. It's got quite a bit of internal strength, and you've still got a nice outer sheathing here. And I do like dealing with the orange stuff here because if I ever drop it in the field or drop it in the woods, it's very easy to find and I'm not leaving debris or litter behind. Now, the biggest problem that I have with 550 is that it tends to fray. You tend to fall apart. This outer sheathing deteriorates, the inner sheathing turns into these wispy lines here, get tangled, they get caught on everything. So the easiest way to terminate that, to stop it from getting worse, is to tie this overhand knot. And an overhand knot is just creating a bite, which is doubling back on the line, and then passing through from the top, through the bottom, and you should have this pretzel-looking shape before tightening down. Single overhand knot, as you can see I've done right here. That'll stop that deterioration. Now, is this the best way to terminate a frayed line? Frayed knot. The best way is to get ahead of it before it starts. If it's a man-made material, we're going to burn the end in. I'm trying to burn the inner core first and then the outer sheathing. That way I know that it's been melted together. I'm going to take it down on my material here and just slowly form it into a nice, neat, burnt plastic end. If I only burn the outer sheathing, you could have delamination inside and lose some of your tensile strength, and you don't want that. So look how much nicer and cleaner that looks versus this portion here. Now I could cut that off and burn it if I needed to. Now that's a great way of terminating man-made fibers. They melt down, you recongeal them into a plastic, and then you're good to go pretty much forever. However, natural materials, such as this cotton rope that I have here, if I were to try to burn these lines down, it just starts on fire. And they just burn like most natural plant-based substances do. I can put it out, but it's not going to melt together. It's just going to sit there and smolder and cause a fire hazard for me. So burning this end down is not an option for our natural material. And as you know, I picked natural rope today to demonstrate our different knot tying techniques. So you can see here a little bit of foreshadowing. We've taped the end here with plastic. We've taped this end here with the electrical tape that I had left over from another video. And it worked pretty well, but I don't like the look of that for demonstration purposes. So instead, I'm going to do what's called whipping. Whipping should look like this when it's done. Nice and clean and organized. There's going to be a couple burnt spots here from the 550, and we'll show you how that's done. And then cut off so you have a little bit of frayed on the end. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip this other end for you. See what I'm doing. We're going to go back a little bit from the end here and cut it off. All you have to do is create a bite in your material, lay it against your line like this, and get it all situated. You have your bite laid up against your line like this. And that's just a simple round turn there. And I'm going to start tightly wrapping this around itself. That's one. I want to get 7 in here. See if I can get 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only got 6 there. Let's try it again. Maybe a little bit less on that bite there. Now this end here that we're not using, we're going to call that the trailing end. And this end that we're using to tie the knot is going to be the working end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. And we're going to pass this through the bite here. Working end, also known as a running end, pass through the bite. Pretty simple setup. If you looked closely here, I was pulling a lot of tension while I was doing that. Now I'm going to hold it here and pull down on my trailing end to cinch off that bite. Pull it nice and tight. Alright, looks done. However, if this were to work its way back up, it would loosen this running end again and would unravel. Some people like to pull this trailing end until the running end is submerged inside of this line. I don't like that because it causes a lump in the line. You get a gap. It doesn't look very clean. So instead, I'm going to cut these down until they have a 1/4 inch left, and I'm going to burn them down, and the plastic's going to melt in, causing it to never move again. Quarter inch. Ooh, got a little stubborn one there. 1/4 inch. There we go. If I fray these a little bit, they'll burn really nicely. And just take your time here. Be patient. You don't want to burn the other line. You just want to burn this end. You want to get it real nice and molten. And then smash it flat. That terminates it very strongly in that area. Ooh, got a little bit that came up. There we go. Should probably let it cool off before I mess with it. Other side, I'm going to bend back this rope so I don't burn it at all. Now it's pretty heat tolerant, unlike the nylon here. That's because nylon's going to start melting at about 200 or 300 degrees, where your natural fibers can take 400 or 500 plus before they start to smolder, depending on the fiber and the construction, of course. Make sure it's nice and tight, nothing that's going to grab on anything. And these melted ends here will prevent this from moving up. which prevents this end from being released and pulled free. And now I've got a nice tight whipped end. From there, just going to go up about a solid 1/4 inch. You don't want to go right up tight against this. If I cut this right up tight against there, this 550 could fall off. We want this to fray. We want to cut this a 1/4 inch up. Apologize for the wiggling there. Cut this a 1/4 inch up and then fray it here so that the line doesn't have the ability to pull off the end. If we cut this too tight, it could slip right off. Now, if we're trying to cut a rope in half, we can whip it twice like I've done here and just cut in the middle. This allows me to cut twisted rope without fear of losing material. Right in there. Ooh, looks like this one might have some sort of manufacturer line as well. In one of these, there's a blue dyed line in the middle. Now, I've already used these ropes here to practice knot tying. It could become a little difficult for you to see what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these, coil them up here. I'll take one of my completed ropes, set it off to the side, and we're going to dye the other one red. Now, the dye I'm using here is really simple. It's just sugar-free Kool-Aid. If you use a sugared Kool-Aid, you can invite pests into your house. You can break down the materials. But this sugar-free Kool-Aid mixed with water does a pretty good job of dyeing natural tinders. Ooh, natural ropes. I'm still on yesterday's episode in my mind. Dyeing natural ropes. Natural fibers. Alright, now we're having a little difficulty submerging the whole thing. I'm getting as best I can, but I don't want to have it become uneven, so I'm going to add a little extra water. I'm going to keep working that down in there. And I'll probably put something on here to weigh it down because it seems to be floating quite a bit as well. And then we can have 2 different colored ropes for our next lesson, which will be knot tying, basics of knot tying, overhand and square knot, and we'll work from there. All right. So that's what we had today. We were selecting, ooh, dyed my hands a little bit too. Seems to be effective. So that's what we had here today. We had to select our rope that we're going to use for our knot tying in the future. I had to pick between natural and man-made. Personally, cotton blends feel nicer to me. There are some nice, not smooth nylon ones as well. I try to stay away from the hemp just because it feels scratchy and I don't enjoy the tactile feeling of it. And then we went with a nice, even twist method versus the braided or the kern mantle. Now, when I do my demonstrations of the knot tying, I will probably use contrasting 550 cord for one and contrasting twist construction natural fiber ropes that you saw here today. We appreciate you stopping by. Thank you for looking at our material here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please check out some of our other videos. Leave a comment below, leave a like, subscribe. Anything that you do to help the channel is greatly appreciated. Thank you and have a good day.